Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the lovely ladies of late night. We are back again. I am so elated to have Maya, Akai, and Angie in the house with us this evening. We have a wonderful show planned for you, and we have a wonderful person who is coming to talk to us about leadership. Leadership not only in the corporate America, but governmental leadership. She's going to touch and tease the base to let us know how women are acting and moving in leadership, and just what we can expect and what we can do when we crave to have positive leadership, because everyone knows who has a job or who is employed, you're only as good as your leader. That's what makes the team effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to bring Barb Christian on tonight. I'm excited to talk to her. She's hailing from Oregon to join us tonight in the show. Hi, Barb.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
We're happy to have you here this evening to talk to us about leadership.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's quite a privilege. Thank you very much.
So, Barb, let's just dive right into the topic at hand. How can we move as a society and how can we move as a society when we crave to have effective leadership, and then most times we don't have it? What can we do as workers and as people?
As workers and people. So leadership is not easy. I just like to state that up front. I think you have to be able to have a strong sense of self. And it, regardless of what position you're in or what role you play in the world, I think you have to have, first and foremost, a strong sense of self. And then I think you have to have a voice. And then you have to be able to stand up and be able to take the knocks for unpopular decisions and choices and opinions. And you really have to be centered in yourself and be able to see the path forward and be able to stand in that regardless of the feedback you get or your detractors and so forth. So as workers and people, it doesn't matter what role you're in. I think you need to be able to do all of that in any position you're put in.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I see sometimes in different venues, government is a little bit different than corporate America or the mom and pop chains. But when you want to have a focus where you're moving your group or the people that you're overseeing in a positive direction in light when there's chaos, what are some of the things that you can suggest to help people stay on one accord, where it's more peace? People are finding that they're under a lot of stress in the workplace. They're not being heard. And some people go against the grain and the norm because they feel like they're not being challenged or they're not being heard, and they have a problem with how management or leadership is guiding them if they feel that things are going in the wrong way.
So I think, the biggest lesson I've learned is you do need to pick your battles, right? Yeah. You really need to understand the big picture and where kind of the company's at and where they're at in the position, and then kind of boil that down into your department and into your role. But at the same time, I think it's important to be true to yourself. And if workers really want change and they want good leadership, they need to be comfortable enough to be able to diplomatically, respectfully voice their opinions, their needs, their wants, their challenges, and their obstacles. Because as a leader, it's hard. I work very hard at walking in the shoes of the people that work with me.
Okay.
And I ask a lot of probing questions to get them to open up. And so I think the people that work with me, generally speaking, know that when I ask your opinion, Sean or Maya or Angie, I really want it, because it helps inform me and it helps me understand your perspective and some of the issues you have on a day-to-day basis. And so when we remain silent, it makes it much more difficult to extract that information and make a formulated decision to go forward. So if you need good leadership, want good leadership, I'd say prioritize what is important to you, what's important to the company, and then continue to have open dialogue and transparency, because that's truly what's going to get to the bottom of the issues and resolve problems, or allow people to grow and evolve.
Okay. Now, Angie, because of your former history, being in upper management as a director and some titles in hospitality, did you find that being an effective leader was challenging for you? Did you try to stick more toward the corporate aspects, being in a high position as a director, or were you a more heartfelt person that listened to your workers, or if they had issues, you wanted to address them?
Absolutely. You definitely have to relate. Excuse me. You definitely have to relate to your staff. I definitely, my staff knew that they can trust me. I never, when I would meet with them, I never had them to sit across from me. I would sit next to them. So things like that. We always got together like once a week on Fridays. We would go out to either lunch or we would do potluck. So, you want to build that trust with your staff. But they also knew I meant business, because we still had a job to do at the end of the day. But you know what? We work together as a team. I always told them there's no I in team, right? So we worked very well together. But one thing I can say about my staff is that when I was not there, they knew exactly what to do. So you train your staff to be able to be you when you're not there. You know what I mean? So we worked so well together, and even I still am in contact with them, because I believe our paths will cross again after COVID. Yeah. But yes, you build that trust with your staff, and you let them know that they can trust you, and you work well with them. You don't make them feel like you're superior. And I never did that. I always tried to teach them. I'd say, if I wasn't here, what would you do?
Okay.
So they were able to hold down the fort. I may have had to go away, for travel or to a meeting or something, and they held down the fort. So that's what you want to build. You want to build that trust with your staff, and know that they're going to take care of things when you're not there.
That's true. What about you, Maya? In your roles, in your many facets of the emergency room, and how does leadership work when you're dealing with doctors, or you're dealing in life and death situations? How does that work?
Leadership is always really interesting, especially when you talk about healthcare. Emergency medicine is a whole nother situation, because within my domain, I'm the mental health side. And almost every emergency room throughout the US has a model that's similar to our work in, which is every hospital has an area that's pretty much designated to mental health, because it's such a dominant issue than it was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So in regards to leadership, you have good leadership when you have a person who's willing to understand what the needs are of not just the patients, but also of the people who work there. Because one of the things we talk about consistently in mental health is self-care. You have to take care of yourself. I'm a crisis intervention specialist, which means for me, every day is allegedly crisis. Not so much all the time, but I'd give it a 50-50. But the best leadership I ever had was someone who really understood the tenets that went into mental health, understanding not just the mental health code, but understanding what makes the patient experience. It's not always going to be good, because realistically, somebody might come in that's psychotic, not healthy, and not that good. But having leadership in a position that understands what's good for the patient as well as for the staff is extremely important. And I have to say, I've had some doctors I work with who totally get how to work with a mental health population versus some who do not. I've had nurses who are great working with that population. Others are not. It's not everybody's cup of tea necessarily. And that's not intentionally. It's just something that over time has become a pressing need that I do believe by curriculum and academics, the shift is happening towards, okay, this is something that's happening. You're going to encounter this in the scope of your job. So we're going to put this into rotations. So little by little, the information piece is coming there. And I'll be honest, some nurses and doctors are absolutely fantastic in that role. Others kind of said, here, Maya, do what you like, which, by the way, I have no problem with because I've been doing it long enough to say, okay, here's what we should do. But when leadership to me is about collaboration, when it's all said and done. When collaboration is not in pace, that's when there's always a disconnect. I don't care what field it is. Collaboration is huge, and understanding the absolute mission that you are speaking to within the scope of your company. Culture is huge. When culture is toxic, I don't care what your leadership skills are, it tends to go awry. So making sure you have a healthy employee culture is so important because they become that links in the chain. And you know what? When it comes to being a company, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And most people don't understand that.
So go ahead, Barb. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. I was going to add, going back also to, I absolutely agree with you. I'm in healthcare as well. And I have such utmost respect for mental health professionals because it's such an important piece of it and it needs to be integrated. Oh, yes. But also, going back to Angie's comment about trust. I mean, I think, teams are truly built on trust.
Absolutely.
It's not always, when you have trust, you can do anything. And that's true whether you're married, whether you're friendships or
right.
And it's profound and undervalued in some ways.
So what I'm getting from this, or what I'm grasping, is essentially you all have to be together in the struggle. Collaborate, the good, the bad, the ugly, the different, and just bring it together in the struggle to make sure that everything is cohesive with everyone. I think it's kind of hard to operate when your leadership is not being effective or the trust is broken. When you have staff that feels like you're not honest, you won't go the distance for them. Right. You can care less about them, their mental well-being, whether they're tired, it doesn't matter. Just push and push until you take the last drop. I think that's where everything kind of falls apart. So I wanted to ask each of you all, as I was thinking about this topic this evening, what are some of the struggles that you all have experienced in leadership that if you could give somebody a little nugget to help them make it better for someone else, what would you suggest?
Well, my staff always knew that I would get down and dirty with them. I always, when I was visit my clients, I would take them with me. And I wouldn't be the one that just asked all the questions. I would allow them to do some of the interviews, and if they, kind of struggled, then I would jump in, because that's the only way that they would learn. But I would definitely let them know, and that kind of built their confidence, because I'm always teaching. I always want to try to teach my staff. I never, want them to be with me for a certain amount of time and they learn nothing from me, So I always tried to teach them. So they knew that they could count on me,
What about you, Barb?
I think for me, it's being very comfortable not knowing everything. I mean, to be a leader, you have to be humble and have humility. And there are a lot of smart people out there that have a lot of talent, and I am never going to have all the answers. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable saying I don't know, or I'm wrong, or what do you think?
Right.
Because and when you get that comfortable in that, you are one step forward. You are on a roll in a leadership position because your credibility will shoot through the roof, because that's the whole point of transparency, communication, collaboration, is extracting the perspective of other people and their mindsets. And it's a powerful thing.
It is. Maya?
Absolutely. I would build on what Barb said. I mean, dialogue is everything. I mean, being in the scope of my job for the past 11 years, people know that I'm the kind of person that you can come to. And I will be very honest. I will tell anybody, if you're dedicated to your job and you're committed to what you do, your craft, and for me, it's patience, then you have to be able to find your voice to be able to voice when something is not appropriate. Now, mind you, it's how you do it. I can honestly say with the leadership I have that I can go to them and express something that needs to be filled in or something that's not correct. And generally speaking, the issue will be addressed. So it's being able to believe, to build those collaborative relationships that become important when it's all said and done. Because to be honest, most of the time that for most leaders, when you have competent workers who are with you, they make your job so much easier. So to have a listening ear to hear what they're telling you, they'll give you information that you don't know. And it's a rich experience. So it can be a give and a take. So definitely it's that absolutely leave it open, have a healthy culture. But if it isn't, leave the door open to have a conversation why it's not. Because most problems have a solution if everybody's open to working towards it.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I agree with that too. I just think that sometimes from a worker standpoint, if people feel like they don't have that opportunity to have openness and be direct, if they feel that there will be some type of massive repercussion or something that is going to hurt them financially or corporately, they may not speak up. They might just fall in line and go along with the munition. We kind of want to make a society or make a work environment better. And I wanted to talk about this because so many people have been calling me saying they have poor leadership at work. And it's from all different gamuts, and they're unhappy with the leadership, and they don't understand why they don't want it to be cohesive and make operations smooth. So I thought if I would check in with you ladies, that this would be a good topic for us to share and maybe address some people. I saw a young lady say hello to us. We have a lot of people listening to us online. We want to say welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. So I want to jump into the hot topics now. This Derek Chauvin. They are talking about doing another trial. Barb, would you like to stay on and talk about this with us?
Absolutely.
So how do you all feel about this? Chauvin's legal team is requesting another trial. They feel that he did not get his due justice, and his attorney is filing a motion in Minneapolis court on Tuesday. He requested a new trial because he said the former officer who was convicted last month for murdering George Floyd, in the motion that there was misconduct, and he claims that he was deprived of a fair trial. How do you all feel about that? Do you think it was fair? Do you think it was not fair? I felt the trial was fine.
Okay.
And I'm ready for the verdict and everything else. What do you, the sentencing? How do you all feel about this? I know it's touchy.
Come on, baby.
It's not. I mean, here's the thing. If you could have found a single soul in America that didn't know something about what happened to George Floyd, good luck on that.
Good luck.
I know part of the issue on the backstory to this was there were a juror or two that previous to being selected had been found to be at the commemorative March on Washington and had some shirts on that alluded to the George Floyd incident. They felt, how did this get overlooked? So they felt like there was instantaneous bias to this.
Yes.
I'm going to flat out say this. Does he have a right to ask for a mistrial? Absolutely. If I was in his seat, I would do the same thing to say I felt there was bias. Some people feel like he's playing the race card. I don't care. I would do the same thing if I was sitting in his position. But when it's all said and done, what the evidence points to is that you extinguished a man's life because of your behavior that was not predicated on serve and protect.
Yes.
And there's no way that the verdict would be any different. I get his point, and he has a right to do it based on law, but it doesn't, to me, change the outcome. Your action spoke way louder than anything you could say in presenting this as a mistrial.
Do you think that he's just trying to, I think he's just trying to pull it out to stretch out his time before it actually goes in and he gets slammed. So what they're saying is this Brandon Mitchell, who previously was known as juror number 52, he became the first juror to actually speak out publicly about the trial last month. He said he didn't feel pressure to reach a guilty verdict. So he's telling you he didn't feel the pressure, but you want to say because he was at the March on Washington,
I agree with the listener. Guilty. At the end of the day.
So I emphatically agree with you, Maya, on your description. And if I was walking in his shoes, I'd probably do the same as well. But I think it's merely, I mean, you could probably call misconduct in any trial, but I got to be honest, that was one of the most thorough presentations of evidence that I have seen in any given
Absolutely
in the modern day. I got to be honest with you there. I thought they meticulously went through and didn't
detail.
Exactly. And it was, I mean, it was just like, how can you not see? There was literally no error between any presentation of any witness or any of the evidence. You couldn't see the light of day. It was just from start to finish, that trial seemed guilty on impact. However, with that said, to your point, and similar to the OJ trial, how can you find a juror that anywhere in this country, in the modern day with the internet and that hasn't been exposed to some form of news around the entire trial? But I do think it's him a form of denial on some, some white privilege thinking, he's maybe untouchable and he's wringing the towel, just trying to get a last ditch effort to either reduce his sentence or potentially overturn it. But I think, again, it's just another for another form of denial in the attempt of an appeal or a second trial.
They say Chauvin is scheduled to be sentenced on June 25th, and he faces up to 40 years in prison, but he will likely receive a sentence closer to about 15 years because he has no prior record. I think they try to get it right this time to try to appease the world. I think it would have been a racial upset across the nation had they not moved in the direction that they're going in, and actually just step by step.
And I would just add one thing. There isn't one human being I know, family, friends, or anyone on this show tonight that could survive 9 minutes and 29 seconds of someone kneeling on their neck.
Even for the people I've met who can be very left, so to speak, because there tends to be this behavior within this country as we want to criminalize the victim, especially if you can find something in their past to say they were a criminal, they weren't this. But at the end of the day, that's not what he was walking free. So whatever he did, he already had paid his time. That doesn't matter. It was how the situation was handled. And even those people say it's hard for me to look at this and say that this was okay, because it was so extensive, the amount of time. If you looked at the testimony from everybody from medical professionals said, it doesn't matter if you had fentanyl in your system, if you had COPD, like you can't do this and expect a person could survive this. So I'll be honest, Sean, when you talked about I told somebody the verdict isn't surprising. It was expected. It's the sentencing to me that makes a difference. And to me, anything less than 30 years is not acceptable.
I agree.
You took away a person's life.
I agree.
You only have to serve 15 years and you get to go free. That's not acceptable to me. I need a minimum of 30 years. Just like you took from someone else is something they can never give back.
Yeah.
I need the same. So to me, that's the next big part of the conversation is what does the sentencing look like more than anything else?
Yeah. Yeah. I felt when I was reviewing the information about it, I was hurt to find out all of this allegedly it spawned from him using a counterfeit $20 bill. You had that much rage in you? No, there was a backdrop to it.
It had nothing to do with the $20 bill. I mean, I watched the video and I just remember when I watched it, it was very devastating. And to see the bystanders pleading for his life, and he was so cocky to stick his hands in his pocket and continue to keep his knee on the neck. There are no words for me. I still
haven't seen the video.
Regardless,
I want to see it.
And no, I haven't seen it in its entirety. I got to a point where I could only watch so much of it because to me, it likened me back to Rodney King. And I remember watching that going, how is this possible? Like it was just too much for me. And I didn't get to the point where he was calling out for his mother. I didn't get to that because I couldn't watch that.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. So I only got into a couple minutes and I said, I know how this ends. I can't watch the whole process. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, going to tie it back to leadership, I got to tell you, some of the witnesses that were able to capture the footage, as disturbing and inhumane as it absolutely was, thankful for that. And talk about an uncomfortable situation where they literally put themselves in a very vicarious position to capture those videos so that we could, propel the change forward. And it's sad all the way around.
But I agree, but the cockiness of him, because he watched them as they videotaped him, he didn't care.
I know.
Well, he had no remorse whatsoever. No remorse. That's what I just really have.
Disgusting.
And he really thought he was going to get away with it.
I'm praying that from this whole situation, as deplorable as it was, and it still is because it's happening every day and it hasn't stopped with George Floyd. There have been many different situations after this. I am looking for a resolution to eradicate this. We need to be able to move around in society and not have a fear of the people who are supposed to be here to protect us.
Amen.
They're supposed to serve and protect. And that is why I dug a little deeper and said, hey, did you all hear about this? These guys work together. They were bouncers together in a nightclub. There's something else here underlying. It was not about a $20 bill. It was not about him doing this. This was something else. Because when you want to harm somebody physically like that, with that kind of rage, where is it coming from?
It's so much.
So her standpoint, it's coming from someplace, right, Maya?
I mean, but here's the problem you see from a historical record within this country. This isn't unique to what you saw. You saw LaPaul McDonald, who was shot 16 times, like that police officer was on safari.
Yeah.
It doesn't take 16 bullets to take down a bear, for God's sakes.
Right.
So it doesn't take that much to take down a human. So you're seeing a pattern of behavior that is not healthy. And this is why when you hear that conversation, which people totally get misconstrued about defund the police, it doesn't mean to actually get rid of the police. It means
take
those financial resources and put it towards people who can have an expertise in these type of situations. But I would even tell you, let's go one further. I mean, part of what's not being resolved in this, and I hate all the rhetoric, but no action.
Yes.
At this point, where it should stand is every single police officer should have to have a camera. Every car should have the appropriate cameras to capture things. This is how we're able to deal with situations and get a full story of what happened and not just what you think would happen. Besides what people reported, which was different than what we call the bystander effect in psychology, which is when people kind of stand around and don't do anything. At this point, it was a little different and people were like overwhelmed. And it's good they caught the situation, but here's the difference. It didn't save his life, even though they were reporting it. Now, it is a difference for the outcome. And it was the same thing with Rodney King. But if you've noticed, we've still had, 2 or 3 other issues, even after this, because within our culture, there's so many things that people don't want to acknowledge about law enforcement. And it's not that they are all bad. That's not the conversation.
No, not at all.
It's not. But unfortunately, if you know your history, with comes power, comes sometimes excessive greed. Along with other things. And I know some excellent police officers. I work with them all the time in the scope of my job. Yeah. I know others that I give the side eye to, like, you're a problem. And I know it. And I can see it.
Do you all think that if one of the bystanders, I believe people sometimes you can be stricken with such fear that you're immobilized and you can't move. Do you think, hi, Valerie Talton, just want to shout out to her. Do you think that people were afraid to move forward and assist because they thought they may be shot or tasered or that's it? You think that's what made the bystanders just be still?
Yes, Sean, this is not the civil rights movement. Back then, people moved in motion because they had an intention, they had a focus, and they were willing to sacrifice themselves. And they knew if I went, you went. But I can't go by myself and nobody goes with me.
Right.
At the same time, do we want to? Here's the thing: do you want to start to encourage that kind of behavior?
Right.
Where citizens become so involved because they're concerned, then we get to another issue. That's not where we want to go with it. It's not. I wouldn't do it because I would be afraid, honestly, that I would be shot, because then I would be interacting in what's called as active arrest. What would happen to me if I did that?
Yeah, the repercussions, legal repercussions.
Yeah, there's not legal. My life could be extinguished. No. So you have to think twice about acting that way. I mean, I get it, but not a good idea.
You know, Valerie, you say teach. I completely agree. Most people fear what they don't know, right?
Absolutely.
And then they retreat to those past learned behaviors or learned biases, cognitive biases. So as we teach, but for those of us who don't understand something, whatever it is, if you seek to understand and others seek to teach what others don't know, that is a nice meeting place in the middle. It sounds idealistic, of course, but at least it's a starting place, because other than that, we are all just shooting from the hip.
No pun intended.
Literally.
No pun intended. And I want to take this opportunity to continue to teach, because we also on this show want to promote all things that are good. And let's give our public service announcements so people can listen and find out what's going on and how they can help.
Hi, I'm Terry Bradshaw. Like many of you, I took the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge back in the summer of 2014. It was cold and it was a lot of fun. But there's nothing fun about ALS. It robs a person of their ability to walk, to talk, and to eventually breathe. It's also fatal, usually within a few years, and is emotionally and financially devastating to thousands of families across America. It's truly a brutal and nasty disease. But we're making progress thanks to many of you. Since the Ice Bucket Challenge, we've seen new ALS genes discovered, new technology developed that helps people with ALS, and new potential treatments in the pipeline. We still have a lot of work to do. I'm no scientist, but I can tell you this: if we can cure ALS, we can cure anything. Please join me in the fight against ALS.
Hey, Mark Wahlberg here.
And I'm Will Ferrell. You all understand the importance of physical toughness.
You train and you push your bodies to the limit preparing for the fight.
Training contributes to your physical and mental toughness.
Sometimes you may feel out of control, but remember, you're human and it's normal to feel challenged by stressful events and circumstances.
Take time for your own mental health and get support early and often. Contact your local community counseling center or call the De-Stress line.
Every one of you is important. Be there for yourself, and more importantly, be there for each other. Be there, Marine.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Hi, ladies. Thank you all. I enjoy the PSAs that we have brought in this evening. I wanted to say we have to take time out for ourselves. I felt really stressed this past week. I said, let me just relax. My breathing felt labored. I need to just scale back some. We can't continue to push ourselves so much in the workplace that we forget about self-preservation, which is the first law of nature. I just wanted to say that. let you all know how I felt about it. Now let's jump into the Golden Globes. Can you believe Tom Cruise gave back his awards?
Multiple outlets report that Tom Cruise has returned 3 Golden Globes to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association following outrage against the annual award show's organizers. Cruise reportedly gave back his Best Actor trophy for Jerry Maguire, Best Actor trophy for Born on the 4th of July, and Best Supporting Actor trophy for Magnolia. His statement comes as numerous stars in Hollywood have criticized the HFPA for its lack of Black representation within the group, which votes on the Golden Globe winners.
Now, what do you all feel about that? About the Black representation? Do you think it's there at the Golden Globes? Do you think Tom just wants to be in the limelight? They're not talking about him anymore. Nobody's talking about Tom Cruise anymore.
No, who else was talking about this?
A keen observation. I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise, I'll be honest. But I think, is it a publicity stunt? Quite frankly, possibly.
Yes.
Probably.
It is.
Probably. But I would also say, I think, to think optimistically or positively, the fact that he's jumping the bandwagon on this, change movement, it's one more voice and a feather in our cap.
Well, NBC said they're not airing it in 2022, right. So it isn't like just a Tom Cruise thing.
Right.
It's interesting because it's like when you got those awards, the exact same situation existed. So
what's different?
Well, to me, what's different is the consciousness,
the climate,
being aware. We like to say being woke. More people have become allegedly woke. I think it's more aware than woke. That's another story. So, he decided to give it back, which is fine. I mean, here's my thing about things like this and cancel culture. It doesn't change the current situation. It doesn't move the needle. People do things that don't move the needle is my problem. So what are you going to do how are you going to challenge the Academy about changing what's going on? You giving back the awards doesn't change the situation.
Not at all.
It doesn't change. The past is the past. And the key thing is to learn from it. So my thing is, I'm less interested in you removing something opposed to what are we going to do in this moment right now, moving forward to change it? Because we are the architects of the future. We are not occupants of this life we're living. Yeah. We get to be, the architects. So I'm okay with him giving it back, but
it doesn't hurt, but it's not
response to NBC. They'll probably change something. They'll put some token people on there because now they have to.
Oh, wow. Did you say that? Okay.
I said it. But look, when people make changes based on force, it means if you didn't do it because you electively did it and you did it by force, it means it was never within your wheelhouse. But sometimes you need to get things put into your wheelhouse to understand why you need to do it.
Now, this award is being pushed back to the show is going to be pushed back to January of 2023. And Tom Cruise is saying that he's giving back the Golden Globe Award because he is upset with the fact that the HFPA is getting all of this backlash. They're getting backlash because he feels that because he's such a powerful mega house box office winner, he drills money in by the millions, that if he gives the trophies back, he's going to open the door for them to shift the change, to shift the climate, to bring awareness to more African American people and people of color to be a part of this. You don't think that was like a good thing he's doing? Or
he does have a son that is biracial.
Yes, he does.
It doesn't mean that people are always aware of things. I mean, here's what's interesting. I can only speak to this from a Black person's perspective.
Okay.
I don't know that white people are always aware of how the world works when you're a minority. When everything, remind you, when we talk about
let's let Barb answer that.
I don't like to throw it around.
I completely agree with you. For me to pretend I know what Native Americans went through with white people would be obnoxiously wrong.
And he's male. So you're talking about when you're at the top of the pecking order, and he's at the top of the pecking order. I don't know. And I'm not saying, here's the thing, I don't just label people racist because they don't make great decisions. If you exist in a silo or a vacuum and the world always went, I've never heard about him being rude to people. I've never heard Vin Rain say, I hated working with him on Mission Impossible.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to say he's a bad person, though he is a Scientologist, which makes
I was going to say, that's the only thing I've heard about his Scientology.
Makes me got a question.
Yeah.
But
she's got the side eye going.
Takes Leah and him to tell you, like, hold up, player.
So,
There's stuff going on here.
I kind of equate it to, in philanthropy, how the well-to-do will often just write a check, and I've helped or contributed to the effort.
Okay.
There might be an element of that going on with Tom Cruise. Like, I will give back my awards, and this will get a grandiose publicity. But in the end, does it really move the needle? No. But does it put a stake in the ground for Tom Cruise? Perhaps. And is it a first step on his part? Yes. Is it him putting his toe in the water? Maybe. But, I don't see a lot of depth in Tom Cruise, to be honest with you.
Come on. You don't want a risky business, him rolling across the floor in his underwear.
Well, I'm not going to talk about that, but they were whiteys.
Tiny whiteys, yeah.
I know, but my point is this his attempt at putting his toe in the water? Perhaps. Okay. Is it going to move the needle? Absolutely not. But if other people jump his bandwagon, then I'm all for it, right? So it's not going to solve the problems, but it can't hurt either.
No, it doesn't. And kudos to him. You know what? Join the movement. This is not new. You know what? And I have to give him credit for at least showing support. So I don't want to, badmouth him. I love Tom Cruise. I think he's great. And he's trying. He's making change. He's making a change. He's showing that he's willing to be down for the movement. So I say, more people should jump on the bandwagon because none of what's happening in the news today is new.
Yeah.
It's not new. It's just that, some people are just getting a clue and they're seeing it firsthand, what we've been saying forever. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's great that he, I don't think I wouldn't have given back my awards that I feel like I earned, but at least he's showing that he's down to support the movement. So,
okay, so we're going to give him kudos for at least supporting the movement. Yeah. On a sad note, I don't want to bring the party down. Obama's dog Bo died, and I know
he's cute.
Maya and some of the other people associated with the show, you all are animal lovers. I know you're a cat lover, but Bo is gone. I'm hoping that President Obama's okay. It was a really cute dog.
We had a video. A Portuguese water dog. Is that what he was?
Yes.
I mean, he was a beautiful dog. I mean, losing a pet is always difficult. I mean, whether it's a dog or a cat. So, it was sad to hear. But guess what? He had a plush life, so he's all good.
Yeah.
He crossed the Rainbow Bridge. He was like, "I'm going to the next fabulous place I can go to."
It was a golden bridge. What are you talking about?
Well, you're rainbow. You're right. It was called the Rainbow Bridge when the pets go. But it's like, yeah, you're right. He was the Golden Bridge when he left. So.
My only comment there, it was sad. He is a very cute dog, and it seemed like it was just yesterday they got that dog. So it's actually like, wow, it's already 12. Bo, it's already 12.
Don't get me started, Barb. I was questioning it from the beginning. They don't strike me as pet people. I'm not going to try to be mean. I'm going to be petty, though. I'm going to be petty tonight.
Okay.
I felt like they got the dog because they had to. Had they got the first cat, I'd be like, yeah. But you know what? I feel like everybody in the White House has to have a dog. I need somebody to break it up and have the first cat because that'd be some real.
I think somebody did. I don't recall who it was, though.
So
a cat or a turtle.
It might have been Carter.
First turtle.
They don't go they may go the distance in life, but they don't go the distance in the White House.
It depends on I can blast my cats up and my turtles. These are some of the flyest turtles I've ever met.
I love turtles.
So we end up going the distance. What do you all think about Ellen no longer doing her show and possibly being replaced with Tiffany Haddish?
Well, I love Tiffany Haddish. I think Ellen should have stopped her show 3 years ago, personally, because it was just kind of redundancy, and I think it got a little too familiar, honestly. And then the wheels kind of came off with some of her staff. That's my 2 cents. I think Tiffany Haddish will be great. I really think she will be fantastic. Exactly. I really like Steve Harvey, so I'm still kind of bitter on them replacing him with Kelly Clarkson. But
Steve had too much on his plate. He family feuding.
Yeah, he does have a lot.
He got too much going
in Africa. Do you know he bought the rights in Africa?
Yeah, he's got too much
phenomenal. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm gonna tell you, if I could pick somebody to replace Ellen, I'd pick Leslie. I love me some Leslie.
Oh yes,
that would be some real talk. It's just something about her that just works for me. I'm not opposed to Tiffany, but there's something about Leslie that's just like, let's sit down and talk. Let's hash this out.
We need replacements for Kelly and maybe Wendy Williams. Are you guys I'm not a Wendy Williams fan.
What? You don't like Wendy Williams?
No, but I want my Harvey back. Steve Harvey.
Wendy Williams is kind of like, he works for her own reasons.
Barb, he has an internet show.
I know. I watch him there.
Oh,
I've moved over on Instagram. I see him on TikTok now. I saw him on Kimmel the other night.
Yeah.
I still watch Ellen. I watch Ellen on YouTube. Her and her wife Portia. Portia tries to create all these dishes that are really elaborate, and she burns everything or cuts herself up. And I watch that for a little comedy every now and then.
I don't watch Ellen. I mean, she's okay. I didn't I mean, she was, when I saw it, it was okay. I'm not necessarily really a talk show person. That probably left with me after Oprah, I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
Oprah was like the pinnacle for me.
Yeah, right. Me too.
It wasn't
beyond that. I was like,
I'm just kidding.
I love Ellen. I'm going to be sad.
I like Ellen a lot, but I think her show just kind of started to dwindle the last few years.
Don't you think everything has a shelf life though at some point?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think her shelf life might have expired about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, she realizes it. It's time to move on to something new.
I actually feel like, because I was an Ellen fan and I still am slightly, I don't think her show was over. I think all of the African American people who started coming out into media saying, hey, I was mistreated, this didn't go right, I wasn't given my opportunity, this was done wrongfully to me, and she had no awareness of what was going on in her ground, in her hut. I think that kind of spiraled out of control in her hut, in her team, in her group. I think that's
her hut's pretty big.
You know, she should be like Martha. Martha Stewart has it figured out. First she was Snoop. Now she over here cutting hedges. I mean, Martha Stewart. Martha has it figured out. Jail it out. Martha is still doing it.
That's true.
Yeah, but in a more muted way.
But
like
Oprah
had to get out behind the camera, or get out from in front of the camera, I should say.
Okay.
Because there was a period, and Phil Donahue went through that. Like all of them, like you said, there's a shelf life, right?
Ricky Lake.
There got to a point with Oprah where it was like almost propaganda. Like
it made sense.
I had a lot of friends regurgitating stuff Oprah was saying, and I'm like, wow, we're just, yeah. Information in, information out, right? And we're not really thinking through it. So, and I kind of feel the same with Ellen as well.
Right.
But Arsenio Hall, like, where's he been?
Oh,
exactly.
America.
I'm sorry. Like, where did he go? Like, he's got a lot of life in him.
I think Arsenio Hall, they kind of like blackballed him, didn't they?
I feel like something happened, but
something happened. Yeah, but
he got the same black ball that Monique got. I saw her yesterday.
No, a little different.
It's different.
But Niecy's on her way back. Niecy Nash, like her.
Niecy Nash is great.
I like her a lot.
I love Niecy Nash.
Yeah, very funny, very funny.
Anywhere?
What's that?
Her show. I don't think she's doing her show anymore. Niecy Nash.
She's still on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Still has her show.
Her nighttime show. Mm-hmm. Is it like a whatever you want to call it? It's not a sitcom. It's a
skits. They do the mini skits still.
Nails. It's whatever you call those kind of nighttime shows. I don't know.
You know who else would be a really great replacement for Ellen? Issa Rae. Do you like her? She's fun.
I don't know her.
She's too busy.
Oh my God! No, this is where I'm aging out.
And what do you mean, Angie? Too busy? What do you mean?
She's creating. She's doing a lot of shows.
Oh, you mean just
have time? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, now the final subject for tonight is a hot one. It's sensitive to me because it's about schools, the 1619 Project, and the states that want to support making sure our children are informed on education and Black history and what has been our past. Maya has always been a big proponent of know your history.
Yeah.
If I know one thing from her, that's her line. And I feel that this is a governmental issue. It's larger than us, parents coming out trying to make our voices heard. How can we, if the government is going to allow funding to be pulled back from schools that actually want to teach the correct history, how can we make a change with that? This is a really big one.
Oh,
This
look
is complicated.
Yeah.
Because what they're asking to do is something that was long overdue.
Yes.
It isn't just about 1619, even though I'm perfectly okay with that because that's when the first slaves arrived to Jamestown, was in 1619. But the bottom line is that U.S. history has to be rewritten because so many people were written out, from women to obviously Native American history to the Chinese history. There's so much history that happened within the U.S.
that was erased,
that don't know about, that it's a disservice, and it's why we keep moving in this very kind of siloed mentality that only certain type of people built this country. And it's interesting that you get that certain kind of pushback from people who don't want to have correct history. But at the same time, this is why some people won't do public schooling. Why they're like, I'll just do private schooling. Not to say that they, by the way, do a better job. I'm not saying
homeschooling
about history. I'm not saying they do a better job.
Yeah.
But it should be something that should be mandated, that history needs to reflect the record as it is. And not his history, but history as it is. Bottom line.
But how do you manage that? You know, that level of quality. You know, that's where you have to have, because teachers, it's subjective if you think about it. It's not.
It's really not.
I'm not submitting that history is subjective. I'm submitting that we can all kind of meander off path and tell our version of our interpretation is what I guess I'm trying to say. And how do you manage that level of quality in the public school system? I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, but I think it's important.
It is important, but you have the U.S. who struggled with the concept. When France gave the U.S. the Statue of Liberty, they gave it to her. The initial model was she was holding chains.
Yes.
To embody the fact that slavery was a part of their history. The U.S. government said, no, we can't do that. But by the way, if you go to Ellis Island and you look at Lady Liberty, the French, being who they are, left chains at her feet.
Yep.
They didn't remove them.
They did.
The U.S. couldn't figure out how to account for slaves who did not necessarily come through Ellis Island, but technically are immigrants. We have a country that still struggles with the concept behind what slavery is. So I'll be honest. Let me just say this. You can't rewrite history till you acknowledge the atrocities of history.
That was done.
Notice, we don't have a problem with writing about the Holocaust. You know why? Because it didn't happen here. So until we are willing to be honest about the history that happened here, we're going to keep having all the same problems because there's so much misinformation about this country. From what we did to the Native Americans when we got here. Thanksgiving is a lie, by the way. It's a lie. It's the worst lie ever. Christopher Columbus did not land in the U.S. There's so much we lie about in history. And people know it's a lie. I mean, that's the thing. Here's the thing. When you don't want to relinquish power, you're not going to tell the truth.
Well, knowledge is power. And that's why we as Americans or as people, as whatever socioeconomic background you come from or whatever ethnicity, we have to search ourselves for the truth. But what I'm saying is the schools, the three schools or the three states that actually wanted to say, hey, let's jump in on this 1619 project. Let's talk about Jamestown. Let's talk about what happened. They're being told, we're not going to fund you. We're going to pull the money back from the schools. So if there's no funding, there's no money, the payment is not there, then how can they teach them? Then the children won't learn. And then there's just another part of history that is going to go in the balance, so to speak. You know, I was shocked. I was reading the 1619 project and
It's a very elaborate project. It's a very elaborate project. I mean, I know history.
There's a lot of hurt here. We have to be able to heal this.
Yes, absolutely, Sean.
As a nation, as a country, you know, we were brought here against our will. We're here now. So let's just tell the truth about it, as you said. So
yeah. But, you know, here's the thing that people don't get about what would be part of the history. And I'm not saying this to like soften the blow. For as bad as slavery was, there were some interesting components to it, like the first historically Black college university, Fisk, that was established by a landowner who had a biracial child.
Yes, and one of
to be properly educated. So for all the ugliness that's there are some things about it that's very unique. We have the most unique culture that I've ever seen in all the countries I've been to. I've been to 20 different countries, and yet we struggle with embracing what makes us so unique. Here. It's not about a melting pot theory. We call it now the salad bowl theory. It's not about melting away. It's about mixing together and appreciating what's in it. Everything has flavor and diversity. But we struggle with the thing that makes us so unique.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We have to get to the point in life, in our everyday existence, of acknowledging our past, so we can move forward to a brighter future. So our children can hold their heads up high when they know the sacrifices that were made by our ancestors for them. But we have to hold our government accountable where they're not going to withhold the funding by voting, just doing a simple thing.
Well, we can't get voting rights together. So,
well, I think there's so much power in what you said. And I completely agree with you. I won't pretend to understand what it's like to be a minority in this country, but I can say it's similar in the sense that until we look in the mirror and say we have misogyny in our culture, you know, until we look in the mirror and say I'm an alcoholic or I'm a sex addict, it's no different in any of that. You've got to face it head on, and you've got to address it, and you got to get it out on the table, and then you've got to dismantle it and rebuild it to a healthier state. And so I don't know how to do that.
I was going to say, how does that start though, Barb?
Right. It starts through what I was saying, is talking about it, acknowledging it, saying we were a country of slavery. We were, sex abusers. We are misogynists, or not were, but are. And I think when you address that head on now, it's kind of like those paddles in the hospital where they rub them together and they shock you back to life. That's like the snap that people need, that shock wave to say, hey, you know what? I guess I didn't realize, I'm an abuser, or I'm a racist, or I'm this, I'm that. And until that happens, we dance around it. And the people that truly are suffering, and the people that are truly oppressed, whether it's misogyny, whether it's racism, whatever the issue is, you're going to butt your head up against that invisible obstacle, which is denial, or, denial, or pretending it never happened, whatever the term is for that. And we're all gonna, we've got to punch through those invisible walls, is my point.
We do. I think as a society at whole, we just have to, it starts with just one person.
Yes.
If one person can make the difference, it could be a channel effect. I believe that in my heart. If I'm wrong, I may leave this world believing that. I saw a sign the other day, and it said, be good to people. It's real simple. It starts, each one teach one. Just be good to the next person, treat people right. Let that manifest in your home, and it'll radiate outward. Just the different things that we're doing for one another. I think Maya has brought such a light to this show with mental health and awareness. And sometimes I am just overwhelmed and overloaded with all of the information that's out there. But we need to be able to reach the people who don't have those resources, and be able to provide that information to them so they can know exactly where to go, or how they can start at their own places of employment, at their own places of worship, trying to make a difference, trying to make a change, getting accurate information out there. Do you all agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a fan of mental health. I think you got to treat the whole person, the whole body.
Absolutely. I would tell you, change starts at home.
That's true. And it takes
that's it. Change starts at home.
And one person can make a difference. It can really start to start the domino effect going. I just don't think it's Tom Cruise, Angie.
John, what's your words of wisdom as we start the show?
I'm so kidding.
I just want to say that at the end of the day, I want to thank everybody for watching the Lovely Ladies of Late Night. This is a show where we want to promote all things good. We want to reach out to you. We want to help you get to that next step, that next venture in your life where you can create and be the person that you were destined to be. We are all put here for a purpose. God has designed us to love one another, to trust, to move forward, and to always think of the possibility of creating a link of joy, like sewing the fabric of humanity together. So in closing, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for watching the show. I appreciate Maya, Angie, and our guest Barb Christian for being a part of our program tonight. And thank you again for watching the Lovely Ladies of Late Night. See you next week.